On April 15, 1947, John McCarvel Jr. was born to Judge John McCarvel Sr. and Corintha Hart McCarvel in Helena, Montana. The oldest of 5 boys, John enjoyed a close-knit, boisterous childhood with his brothers Steve, Stuart, Scott, and Bruce. From a young age, John's sense of humor and wit were evident, as he was very fond of playing pranks and had a contagious laugh. At the age of 4, John began accordion lessons, and it was discovered that he had perfect pitch. He made his debut at 4, playing the accordion on a local radio station. When he was 6, he began piano lessons and later studied with Professor Theodor Lembes, concert pianist from Hungary. When he was 13, he began to play the organ, studying both classical and popular music. John also credits Sister Ursula Marie, piano and organ teacher from Ursuline Academy, with his musicianship. John briefly attended the Redemptorist Seminary in Oakland, California, as well as Cathedral High School in Helena, Montana. At 16, John had his first professional engagement at the Diamond S Ranch Hotel in Boulder, Montana, performing instrumental dance music. That gig lasted through the rest of high school. John also briefly attended Carroll College in Helena. At 19, he was hired by the Colonial Club in Helena, and in 1968 began playing at clubs in Kodiak and Anchorage, Alaska. Tragically, in August of that year, John's brother Scott died in a trucking accident, and 8 months later his brother Steve died heroically in Vietnam and was awarded the Purple Heart. In 1971, John returned home to perform nightly at Gordon's Supper Club in Great Falls. John developed a wonderful rapport with his customers and had a knack for remembering each of their favorite songs as they walked in the door. One publication reported, "John's music is full of life and he has an individual style of his own. His very sharp sense of humor shows throughout his music. His concentration is excellent since he can chat freely with people, carrying on a conversation on each side of him at the same time, never missing a beat of music. People are always marveling at how he can remember songs way before his time, never using music. He can play nearly any song requested from the turn of the century to present day." John's first album, Please Play It Again, sold over 1,000 copies. In 1972, John met the love of his life, Gloria Norby.
I was 19 years old and went to a local organ bar at a supper club with a work colleague. And at that time, I was introduced to John McCarvel Jr. We were both in committed relationships, so it was just a drink with a friend. But the next day, he called my friend at work to find out more about me. So throughout that summer, I would say to a girlfriend, "Hey, let's go to the organ bar and have a drink. I know that cute organist will buy us a drink." And we did, and he did. I always sat with my back to him, playing it just a little bit coy. In October, we were both no longer in our relationships, and we had our first date. And we were engaged January 3rd and married June 30th. It was a whirlwind of love at first sight. And so, it started with a frozen daiquiri, turned quickly into love. And the rest, as I say, is history in our beautiful, lifelong love story.
In 1977, John and Gloria moved from Great Falls to Phoenix, Arizona, where John began playing in several different clubs, including a brief stint subbing in at Organ Stop Pizza. In July of 1978, he was hired at Ritter's Chalet, where he performed 5 to 7 nights a week for more than 20 years. He continued to record more albums, including John McCarvel at the Hammond X66 and John McCarvel and his Swingin' Organ. April of 1984, John and Gloria had a son, Stephen McCarvel, named after John's brother. My dad was the most kind, caring, smart, funny, fun-loving, generous father any kid could hope for. Somehow, despite continuing to perform most nights of the week, John was able to pursue his second passion, computers and programming. In the late 80s and early 90s, he created a software business called Success Line Software that produced payroll tax and video rental point-of-sale programs for businesses. In August of 1996, John suffered an aortic aneurysm that hospitalized him for 3 months. 3 years later, he had a stroke related to surgical complications that deprived him of the use of his left hand and caused irreparable damage to his vocal cords. This loss of voice, both personally and musically, was devastating to John. But his love of life and family held strong. John enjoyed listening to his extensive music collection, which consisted of classical, jazz, Dixieland, show tunes, and much more, watching movies and television, learning about classic cars, and spending time with his family. In January of 2020, John learned that he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. His final weeks were spent with family, remembering all of the great memories, stories, jokes, and milestones throughout a life well lived. As his philosophies were rooted in faith, love, family, empathy, humor, and gratitude, I believe he would like to say these last words.
Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.